If you would like to speak, I do need to know this because right now I'm going to be going off this list when we're calling people to speak. So if you haven't signed up and you'd like to speak, be sure and do so before the end of the meeting. And then Leslie wanted to say a couple things about the Zoom before we get started.
So I'm Leslie Dempsey, Grange Master. I just wanted to say, don't be nervous about the 99 person occupancy. That's only if we're serving food and beverage. So with no food and beverage, we can be up over 200 people. So don't worry about that. Just so you know, the folks who are coming in by Zoom will be able to see the meeting. They'll be able to hear the meeting, but they won't be able to ask their questions directly. I'm asking them to ask in chat, and then, you know, I'll come up and ask the questions of the LIFAC board and the council folks from the podium. So just so you know that.
And we're gonna pause. Yeah, so we're not gonna get started right this second because one of the council members and one of our LIFAC members missed the 5:30 ferry. They're on the 6:50. So they will be here in about 5 minutes. So we're just going to pause so that they get here. So go ahead and resume your chat.
Oh, it gives me time to read this with Rich Price.
I'm not. I would like to thank all of you for coming out here tonight to listen to our conversations around the ferry. My name is Mary Marshall. I've been a resident of the island for about 5 years, and I've been on the committee for just under a year. You might know me because apparently I'm fairly famous on Nextdoor, or is that infamous? I'm not really sure, but anyway, that's me, Mary Marshall. So let me introduce the LIFAC committee to you real quick, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Rich Fry. We've got Jim Dickinson, Rich Hudson.
Is not a LIFAC member.
Yeah, it's true. Public Works. He's a ferry guy.
Yeah.
And we have Judy Olson. Chris Colburn, non-islander, Mike McKenzie. We have a councilwoman, Kathy Kirshner, and Councilman Todd Donovan here for the discussion this evening.
Is Todd going to attend by Zoom?
No, he's not. And we have one member who is not here tonight, and that's Todd Legacy. So the first thing we're going to do is call this meeting to order, and we're going to do a flag salute. So if everybody can stand, and you want to hold the flag. Oh, we have a flag. Chris brought us the flag. So I pledge to hold it in peace to the flag of the United States of America. For all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the flag.
And now we're going to do what we traditionally do, which is basically just try to have everybody get grounded. We're going to have a moment of silence. So if we could just have a few seconds of silence before we get started, I'd appreciate it. Okay, thank you. All right, we have a couple of pieces of business that we have to start with this evening. I am actually the acting chair. I was secretary and vice chair, and Judy had to step down. So we do need to have some quick election of officers. So just a little business here. So I'm going to nominate Judy for secretary. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Okay, great. Judy, your secretary.
Yay.
I'm going to nominate Chris Coburn as vice chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay.
No, sure.
Okay, so is that a no?
At the moment, yes. Yes, no, whatever. I just not sure. Yeah.
Okay, Rich.
Sure.
Okay, so we have 1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4, 5. Okay, 5.
Sure.
Okay,
So does that mean he doesn't want to be chair?
correct.
Right.
That means I can't be chair while I chair up until,
Okay,
So I make a motion to nominate Mary as chair.
second.
Second, Chris. All in favor? How many do we have? Mike, Chris, myself. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you vote?
yes, you can vote for yourself.
Fellas?
Second.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay, motion carried. I am the newly elected chair. Judy is the secretary and Chris is the vice chair as of tonight. Thank you. And the other little piece of business before we get started is I would like to propose that we approve the minutes from the March meeting. You all received a copy of this. Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
minutes.
Minutes.
Yeah, no,
You know, okay.
there's one out.
Oh, well, you had an opportunity to inform us. Because they were sent out.
I just got the information.
Okay, they were sent out twice, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and then several days ago. So if you have an error and you want to submit it, just abstain for now. That's fine.
Okay,
Okay.
so where are we at?
1, 2, 3, 4. Rich.
Okay.
Okay. They're approved. And Jim, you'll get us the mistake that you want corrected.
Well, we'll talk about it.
Oh. Okay. So we're going to ask all of you that signed up to speak. I know Kathy, you wanted to say something. Did you want to say that before we get hear from everybody, or would you prefer to speak after?
I just thought it might be a good idea to set the tone for sort of the LIFAC committee and the Council of Public Works and Finance Committee. I'm going to share comments with Councilmember Donovan, since he's the representative here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can speak.
Sure.
So I'm Kathy Kirshner, and I serve on the Whatcom County Council as also the chair. Oh, come on in, guys. Also the chair of the Public Works Committee and the Finance Administrative Committee, which those two committees have been handling some of this ferry issue, Public Works with the ordinance and the ferry rate. And so I attended the last meeting that you had, and I just wanted to come and hear from the community, and also come and support the hardworking members of your volunteer LIFAC committee, which is the Lummi Island Ferry Advisory Committee. They were set up over a decade ago to provide advice back to the council on matters such as what we're discussing tonight. And so they're working in conjunction with the council. Mr. Donovan here, Councilmember Donovan is your county council representative on this committee. And they're working to bring information back to the council that can that shares your voice. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that you're going to share your voice with us. And what we want to do is get to a solution that we can all live with, and we want to respect the work that you guys are doing. That's what I want. And we have Councilmember Alan Boss in the back. If we want to bring him up,
He's got a seat right up here.
Well, yeah, I'm not a committee either.
Todd, do you want to say it?
I'm Todd. I've been the council rep on this committee for 6 years. This is the biggest crowd we've had at any meeting I've been to. So good to see everybody.
Great, thank
Except
you.
for the beach school.
Yes. Okay, and so prior to getting started, I keep saying that, but I do want to just set some context and give everybody a little bit of history so that we can help have this be a really productive meeting for all of us. So I wanted to remind you what LIFAC is and what it isn't. It is an advisory committee only. We actually don't make any rules. We aren't the decision maker. We don't have any authority. We can only recommend. We act in an advisory capacity, and our real aim is to help provide safe, reliable, affordable transportation for all the residents of Lummi Island. And we act as a liaison for the community to Public Works in the county. So given the strong opinions on both sides of this conversation, I would really ask that we all remain respectful and assume positive intent. I assume that each and every one of you came here today to gather information and to share your opinions. And everybody's opinion is valid and valuable. It's absolutely okay to disagree. It is not okay to be disagreeable or disrespectful. So if that happens, I will unfortunately ask you to step off. We're going to make sure that everybody is heard this evening. And during the public comment section, we will limit you to 3 minutes. We've got a timer over here. We have a list of everybody who wants to speak. I think there's another one up there. And if you do want to have time, that's perfectly fine. It's going to obviously go longer than 15 minutes, and that's just fine. We'll take what time it has. Leslie is gathering the comments from the people that are on the Zoom call, and so we will definitely hear from those individuals as well. If the thing that you wanted to say has already been said, if you could cede your time to other people, that would be really helpful. Just say, I agree with so-and-so, and maybe add whatever you need to add, and that way it'll make sure that we get enough time for everybody to speak. We do have to save a portion of the end of the meeting for a little bit of business. This is the only time we get together as a group, and there are some things that we actually have to discuss. So we can't take the entire meeting for comments, although we'll just see where it goes. But this is the only time that we have to do that. So I'd like to remind everybody why we're here in the preceding events. Very simply, the portion of the ferry expenses that are covered by fares, which is 55%, are not being met by the current fare structure. There hasn't been an increase since 2011, so that's 12 years that we have been paying the same price on this ferry. So I don't know about you, but there's nothing that I'm purchasing today that's the same price as it was in 2011. The costs have gone up significantly, and especially since the ferry is actually past its useful life. So this has been going on for a while. It's not something that just started this year. It actually started probably around the start of the pandemic, but it was let go because, of course, you're in the pandemic. It was brought to the LIFAC's attention last October. So we've literally been discussing this topic for 6 months now. So we've had all those meetings, we've had public comment, we've done a lot. It's not like this is the first time this is coming up. Many fare proposals have been floated starting in December, which ranged from about a 38 to a 50% increase. We thought that was excessive and pushed back pretty hard on that. The council listened, which we were really grateful for. And that was in February, and we asked them to be put on hold, which they were, because we felt it was too expensive. Kathy Kirshner proposed that we use some ARPA funding. And the distinction here is that COVID funds were only available for transportation agencies. We are funded by Public Works, which is not technically a transportation agency. Therefore, it was not eligible for COVID funds. So ARPA funds are in fact the federal funds which are available, and Kathy has requested that for us. And we talked about changes to the ordinance because we cannot accept ARPA funds if the ordinance doesn't change. Something has to go in there to be able to accept that. When those conversations began in February, we discussed the proposed ordinance changes as a committee, and copies of the changes were given out at that time. After a lot of scrutiny of the expenditures, a lot of the Islanders believed things were categorized incorrectly. And because of the deep dive that Randy Rydell, who is the finance director, did, he found a mistake. Unfortunately, it was not in our favor. It went the other direction, which made things worse. Kathy again proposed that we cover that with more ARPA funds. So I'm like, okay, that works. Proposed. I don't know that we're getting it, but that was the proposal. And then in March, Public Works asked to meet with Judy and myself after our monthly meeting as the chair and the vice chair to review another fare proposal that they had. We forwarded this proposal, which is the one that you're currently looking at right now or have seen on Nextdoor, to the rest of the committee, and we sent the ordinance to the committee because we didn't have a meeting in between the time we got that information and the time that it was going to be put out to the council. So we had to move relatively quickly. The only person that commented was Rich Fry, asked for a marked up copy of the ordinance. Public Works asked that we attend the County Council Public Works and Health Committee meeting and give our feedback on both proposals, which was yesterday. So I spoke to each individual member and asked them what they thought about it. I took that to the meeting yesterday, and I just want to be very, very clear. No violations of the OPMA did occur. So all that chatter about that is not correct. And we've checked it out with the attorney for the county. So regarding the ordinance changes, the clarification, there is a clarification of operating versus capital expenditure. It's all according to accounting principles. I know there's a lot of differing opinions on that, and that's okay. It allows people to exchange their current punch cards for the new punch cards with no loss. Currently, you have, I believe it's 3 months to use the current cards, and then they're no good. And now we're proposing to change them in, you get the value that you paid for them. So that is not currently in there. We put in or requested that there be a process for the annual review so that we never have to go through this again. I don't know about you guys, but it has not been fun for me. Because there should be regular review of this and either a decrease or an increase based on what the financial situation is. We made sure that there was a piece in there that said that needs-based fares will always be our highest priority and get the highest discount. So we put that in there. We did make the change or recommendation to allow Public Works to accept ARPA funds so that we can offset some of these expenses. Kathy requested 1 million. I heard at some point that there was 1.3 million available. So I asked for the whole 1.3 million. I figured, why not? Okay. I don't know that we're going to get it, but I figured I would. And the fare proposal is, let's see, I had some copies of it. Where did they go? Here they are. Structure. There, yeah. So the fare proposal structure is here. Now it is overall average, it's 25% increase. It looks, well, it is, it's not looks like, it is higher in some categories. And those categories it's higher is on the multi-ride cards for both pedestrians and for cars. The reason it's higher is that we felt it was originally a 50% discount. It's now a 25% discount. So for cars, it's going to go up $2. And for passengers, I think it goes up $1 or something like that per ride. We tried to put most of the increases to trucks. And I apologize to anybody that has a truck, but that's where we put it. No, big trucks, commercial trucks. So, and this, even this keeps us just barely even. It doesn't make up for any of the deficit. So all this does is cover the 55% fare portion that, according to how we're supposed to be paid for, the county pays for 45%. So that only gets us even. It doesn't cover the mistake. It doesn't cover the current deficit. That would all, hopefully, fingers crossed, be covered by ARPA funds. So that's what we're attempting to do. Basically, if you want to look at it on a ferry basis, every time the ferry goes over, it costs more to run the ferry than the fares cover of their 55% of it. So that's the kind of the bare bones version of it. Yesterday, there was a county council meeting last evening. We had a committee meeting yesterday. I spoke and basically said that 4 of us on the committee are in support of the ordinance change and of the fare proposal. 2 were opposed and 1 was undecided. And so tonight we will attempt to take a vote on that at the end of the evening. So with that, we'd love to hear from you. Let's see.
Can I say something?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Introduce,
Yeah, we didn't. This is Councilman Ellen Boss.
Yeah, so I represent District 5, obviously, which encompasses Lummi Island and Ferndale and Blaine. And a lot of the feedback I get from folks on the island is, Councilmember Ellen Boss, why are you silent on this issue? And my response to that, because I'm still listening. And one of the things I'm listening for is I hear from LIFAC that this is supported by island residents. And then I hear from island residents that this isn't supported by island residents. So I'm listening to try and decipher what is supported by island residents. That's one thing I'm doing. Another thing I'm trying to sort out is, as it was mentioned, everything in life has increased in cost over the last, 10 years since the last time there was a cost increase. And so if there is a genuine reason why that cost wouldn't need to increase in this instance, I'm trying to figure out what that is. Because I think that we should be fair to the islanders, but we should also be fair to taxpayers on the other side that don't even know your island exists. And so my job is to make ordinances and vote on budgets and decide where money gets spent in a fair and equitable manner. At least that's what I feel my job is. And so I honestly haven't formed an opinion on which way I'm going to support things. And I came tonight in person because I wanted to look people in the eye and see where we're at. And if anybody has a reason that there should not be an increase at all, a valid reason, I'd be interested to hear it, because for the life of me, I can't figure out a valid reason not to raise the fare. It's just, how much are we going to raise the fare? So that's what I'll be listening for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and start with Catherine Shornick. And you can come up to the microphone if you like, or you can simply stand. It's totally up to you.
Thanks to everyone for being here, especially people from the council. Really appreciate you making the trip. I've been on the island more or less for the last 40 years for an absence. My kids went to school here. Some of my grandkids have gone to school here. I've been here a while, ran a business out here.
So it's actually going to there, and Val just corrected me. If you want to make comments, you will have to come to the podium, or the people on Zoom can't hear you. So it's fine.
Okay. Okay, I'll try to speak up. Okay, I see. Okay. I'm not going to reiterate the primary issues before you this evening. Instead, I encourage you to refer to the thoughtful and knowledgeable communications provided by Diane Harper, Janice Holmes, Peter Earl, Rich Fry, and others. While Lummi Islanders understand that costs for everything are increasing, it is imperative that rates are based on sound accounting and clear rules for too many obvious reasons to list. I urge LIFAC to honor community concerns by delaying or voting against Public Works recommendation to the Finance Committee and thus the County Council regarding proposed ferry fare increases until questions surrounding a 17-year accounting error and other concerns have been resolved, something assured to us by the county executive in a Zoom conversation with island residents last month. Moving forward, I'd ask LIFAC to communicate with the community outside of LIFAC meetings. While sometimes inconvenient, communication would invite informed discussions and help mitigate misunderstandings and the alarm that decisions are being made absent of resident input. I do have several questions regarding fare details. Forgive me if I'm misunderstanding or I missed something on the tiny little spreadsheet. And on the list, I'm not seeing a 10-trip pedestrian only card. With the proposed increases, a 10-ride card would be a really valuable option. I don't understand why full-time post-high school students are not provided a driver's discount. Not doing so eliminates a break for college, trade, or other students who don't ride with others or take the bus, which is probably most students. And I'm curious why county vehicles are only credited to the fare box at $10 per trip, a rate below any proposed amount for any vehicle. Should they not be credited at whatever equivalent rate is appropriate, such as a truck, a large truck or trailer or whatever? Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Thomas.
Pass.
Okay.
The point I was going to make has been made.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Patrick Vincent.
Thank you. I spoke to Satpal, the county executive, about 2 weeks ago. He promised me that there would be no fare increase, in his words, until he got to the bottom of all of this. Excuse me?
Repeat that.
Till he got to the bottom.
I didn't understand you.
Never mind. I'm right
No.
now.
Okay, he made that promise. I don't think we have got to the bottom of all this. I have a number of questions. Well, let's start with the ferry box at 55%. There are other ferries that don't use that figure. And all of the discussion of the ferry box seems to have revolved around it as though it is some kind of sacred cow that cannot be considered. But as to what is in the ferry box, we began last year with a surplus that has been whittled away. One of the most disturbing things to me was the problem with accounting over the last, what was it? Was it 17 years?
2006.
Yes, and we're talking, what is it? 1,700,000?
It was under $1 million.
It's over $1 million. It's not chump change, right? And that was put in the ferry box. Mistakes by our DPW, the islanders are supposed to pay for. This is just not right. It is ridiculous. Then we have the latest language that came out in council yesterday with the justification that the language had to change on capital and routine maintenance to get ARPA funds. Well, maybe it did, but did it have to change in the way that it was written up, which totally takes away the argument over the $800,000 for the dolphins? It's like a dog and pony show. I don't think you are listening to us. And I plead with you to listen to us, because it's not just a matter of 900 people on the island, on the mainland too. What happened at DPW with the fuel tax miscalculations also affects them. And somebody on Nextdoor made that comment, and it is an important comment to be made. And it seems that LIFAC and DPW and the finance department of committee of the council are determined, rather like the captain of the Titanic, to say, I see no icebergs, full speed ahead. And this extends way down to the new ferry. Thanks for your comments. Your 3 minutes are up. Okay, I will stop there. Thank you very much for your hearing.
Can we have Pam Gould? I think it is.
Hi, my name is Pam Gould. I've lived on Lummi for over 50 years, been a ferry rider all of that time, and watched the island try to responsibly support their share of the ferry revenues that they've had to pay, throughout that time. I know that in like 2012 or 2013, we worked hard to get our share of the fare box up so that we were developing a surplus. And between 2012 and 2019, we developed a $2.5 million surplus so that we were paying our fair share, and we were happy to be doing that. But something changed in 2019. And when you look at the county's graphs currently, their accounting graphs, suddenly there's a big fall off that was pretty dramatic, but nobody has really explained adequately to anyone. And I've asked a number of people, including LIFAC representatives, what happened to the $2.5 million surplus that we had in the ferry fund. And we've heard from accounting 2 or 3 different explanations, but besides the surplus, the $2.5 million surplus, and Mr. Ellenbus, I encourage you to look at this. Besides that huge surplus, we lost all of that and millions of dollars more between 2019 and now. And I think the Islanders just don't feel that it's been adequately explained to us what happened. And I know that some of it is somewhat technical, but most of us have, are smart enough and we've followed these issues, and it just doesn't make sense. So last month, when we had a public Zoom meeting, and Satpal attended, and numerous Islanders attended, and some of the LIFAC members attended, he agreed that there were clearly some egregious accounting errors that needed to be addressed. And he said, I absolutely want to pause this process and table it until these accounting errors, we get to the bottom of these issues. We don't want to go forward with this process until this is addressed. And 2 weeks later, Public Works made this proposal. So you can see why Islanders do not feel confident or heard when we have the county council executive tell us that, and then his employee goes forward 2 weeks later with the proposal he has told us will be paused. So that's why you see so many people here, because it hasn't seemed very accountable.
Thank you for your comment.
Elizabeth Marshall?
I've decided against it.
Okay. Toby and Barbara King, did you want to speak, or was that a no? No, okay. Bob Anderson?
No.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. I first want to thank LIFAC, whatever the issues are among you. I know you've been working hard on this for a long time, so thanks for doing that on behalf of all of us. And thanks to the county council members who are here to listen. I really appreciate what you had to say, which is that you're not clear on what the facts are and what the issues are, and you're here to listen to what's happening to people in real time. I'm a homeowner on the island for 20 years. I'm now getting gray. I'm on a fixed income. And my greatest concern is that the character of this island is going to be severely impacted by a substantial increase, such as the one that's being proposed. We have people not only on fixed incomes, we have families. We love the diversity to the extent that we have it on this island. And this increase of this magnitude at this time, in my opinion, would severely erode our ability to be the community that we'd like to be. So that's the main point I would make. I want to echo some of the comments made by others and basically say, I don't think if I were in your seats, I don't think I would be prepared to make a decision on this, because you don't have all of the information, and really big information, including the concept of what about that, the assumption that 55% is the appropriate fare box share. that's as sacred as the law was passed at that time. It's not sacred into the future. I realize there may be other points of view on that, but that's important, as well as the other technical issues. And I'm trying to study these about the allocation of capital expenses, about past history of how accounting has treated things. I just don't believe you're ready to, and I don't think we as a committee or as a community should support any proposal right now. I think at some point in time, there's going to be some kind of ferry increase. It would be reasonable, wouldn't it? But to this extent, I think the impact will be so significant on this community that we will all suffer. I mean, the larger community, as well as the community of people on this island. Please don't make a decision on this until your county executive has all the information that he needs, and you as council members have what you need to make an intelligent, informed, and in the end, an effective decision. Please listen to this.
Don McHouston.
Hey, Don McHouston. You know, I pretty much echo the sentiments that have been brought up already. The one thing that I've been disappointed about that I haven't heard much, I feel like is the island, we're being pitted against the rest of the county. And I've got enough friends in Point Roberts and such, you know, and we're unique, we're a gated, we're the gated community and such. And I don't know, for me, it's hard to believe that Point Roberts isn't a burden, it's what's being painted out as this island. So I would hope you would consider what's been done for Point Roberts, like during the COVID relief, the ferry and such. We still paid our ferry. I know they couldn't get in and out, but we still paid our fares for the ferry and such. The other point I really don't understand the 17-year deficit. I don't understand why we're on the hook. And maybe somebody could take the time and explain it, but it just, I get being on a hook for a few years, but 17 years, it's a hard pill to swallow. I already have one couple that have left the island. They snapped when they heard about the fare increases. They're gone. So they just had a garage sale. They're in the process of selling the house, and it was due to the fare increases. The other thing I just wanted to bring up is, we're talking about a fare increase now. Things have gone up. I will acknowledge that. Fares will probably need to go up. But what I'm concerned about is we're getting this new ferry. And is this just the start of more challenges? And are we going to be able to stomach increases after this? And I feel like, from prior when the nation, we had challenges with the nations on negotiating and stuff. I feel like we're just putting out one fire at a time. And it'd be nice if we've kind of got a plan of attack for when we do get the new ferry. So anyways, that's my quick ramblings. Thank you guys. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate it.
Kathleen Gallagher.
Oh, thank you. I agree with a lot of the comments that have already been made, but I'm not sure exactly if I'm talking to you guys or the rest, the people who are not here in our community. I do worry a lot that the increased fares are going to change our community, the diversity that lives here. I appreciate the fact that you kept the low-income ferry tickets at a reasonable rate, even though they are higher than what the state allows for the state ferries. At the beginning, we salute the flag. So we are a small little community inside of a country, inside of a state, and there are principles for taking care of people, marginalized people and people of diversity. And I think it's recognized in these days that a healthy community does have diversity in it. However, a wealthy community has a lot of tax revenue in it. And this island would be a wonderful place for a lot of wealthy people to move to and hire big trucks to come over and service their needs that will pay higher ferry fares. So I feel like there might be a conflict of interest here. That people who of diversity that need help with the needs-based fares, they might not be such a welcome bunch of citizens to have. It might be better if there was a lot of people who could pay more taxes and higher fares. So I don't know who's going to monitor that, but I just want to, it's a big elephant in the room as far as I'm concerned. So I looked at the needs-based fares, the very low income. Someone told me it's only 5% of the island. So that's less than 50 families that receive those needs-based fares. And so I looked at the income levels. For a single person, it's supposed to be very low income if you're earning $31,700 a year. To me, that is Fat City. And I know a lot of people here on the island who do not apply for the needs-based fares. So the last thing I want to say is on Zoom or wherever anyone's listening or whoever has friends, if you have friends that are making less money and they're not getting the needs-based fares, I would encourage them to speak up and sign up for that and stop being so proud. Yeah, don't be so proud. Go and get it, because you need to represent the true face of this island. You really need to do that here, because we're not being heard. And you know, the language needs-based, that feels bad, you know, to have to say that. If you're working, that feels bad. But we need families here. Half of our school comes over from off island, or we wouldn't have a school because we don't have enough kids here, because we don't have enough families here. And there's no jobs here either. But somehow a lot of people in big trucks come over from town to do the jobs. So, you know, we need our families here. We need people of diversity here, or it's just going to be a really bad place to live. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Ralph Steele.
I'm Ralph Steele, and I'm a part-timer on the island. Excuse me, 3 minutes. No. I've spent a lot of time going through the numbers, and I won't repeat what I've said before to the council. But I've never seen, as 48 years as a CPA, a simple calculation of ferry box revenue versus expenses, 55% operating costs, etc., and such complex and shifting presentations. In January, we had a proposal for 35.5. After that, we had ARPA money built into the presentation, $1.4 million. Plus, we had a reducing adjusted operating costs, impacting 500,000, favorable 2 million. And the proposal was 37.74% increase. So the 2 million disappeared. I'd like to just briefly talk about 2019 versus 2024 costs. Per the county's numbers on the ferry schedule, with one adjustment, and that is for putting money in the bank for boat fund. If you look at the 2019 costs for the running the ferry, they're approximately 3.2 million. Go to 2024 and 3.6 million. 12.6% increase. So everything being equal is a 12% increase. 2019 had a positive fare box surplus and a cumulative surplus of $500,000. Forget the adjustment for 2006, 2007, 2008 on. Just hold that for a moment. So what's happened in the interim? We've had the retroactive correction, which has cost 55% of 1.1 million or $622,000. That's cash. They're asking for islanders over the next 3 years. And it's also just 2 other points. The boat fund to 2024 is building up a cash surplus, money in the bank of 720,000. And that is contrary to the explanation at the top of the boat fund, which says it's to basically flatten out expenses. Building. 2024 is 360,000 more than projected actual. No explanation. And that they're charging us the 720 is built into the required fare box. So that's why it's not 10%. The other things that are built in are dolphins, 800,000, and that's an error considering the current code. Revised code, clear. What the county calls operating major capital major is in there. But is that retroactive? Don't know. As far as money goes, there's no deficit. There's a surplus of about $2.3 million plus 720 at the end of 24. So I'm mixing years a little bit, but currently there's 2.3 million according to Public Works Finance. If we were to get ARPA funds, $1 million, that would be 3.3 million. Plus the 700,000, $4 million. If you did nothing, raise no fares between now and December 31st, 2024, that would be down $1 million, so you still have 3 million. According to Public Works Finance, there's no provision.
That's your
for
3 minutes, sir.
I don't get 30 seconds left.
We need to observe these rules.
30
like
seconds.
County Council does.
People are using less time than 3 minutes. You can let them do that.
It's
important. What's wrong with fast?
Well, we might have time to.
We can come back if people have more and there's still time.
Carly Tucker.
Everybody wants a special consideration. Okay, that works great. Go ahead. Great. That's great. That's
3 more minutes.
Yeah. Folks, I just want to say, this is exactly the same stuff that County Council does at meetings. I was at a meeting last night and it went till 10 o'clock and they had to observe the limits in order to get through as many people as possible. So I'm sorry, it's not personal.
Right.
Yeah. And this way of handling it works perfectly.
Difference is we don't get to ride a beautiful boat over here.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're not allowed to breathe.
So the simple terms are there's lots of money and there is a provision in the current code which has been struck out, the new revised code, which seems to say that if there's money in the ferry fund and it's not clear, when there's a deficit in the calculation, offline calculation for the fare box deficit, if it can be covered by the ferry fund, then you don't increase fares. That's the last part of the current code. Not clear, but, and just back on, I'm rambling, but just when people say there hasn't been a fare increase since 2011, my 2018 punch card and my 2022, it's gone up over 10% because of the $1 capital, which is a fare, which has now been clarified and revised things which should be included in the fare in the current calculation, but it's not. Today, I understand that if we get ARPA funds of $1 million, then the cumulative deficit is 250,000. I think, Kirshner, is what I heard, and I haven't seen the presentation, but I heard Randy say that if we got the millions, that 1.2 million deficit, theoretical calculation deficit would only be 250,000, which is nothing compared to $4 million, which is sitting in the bank, will be sitting in the bank, sorry, if we get the summary message. Costs have gone up 10% between 2019 when there was a surplus and 2024. All sorts of things have happened, including the 17-year retroactive adjustment. Correction. And I think the changes in the code are significant and material and important. And I think they need 3 months to discuss, not 3 days or 3 weeks. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Leslie, we're ready for the Zoom questions or comments.
Okay, there's only one person on Zoom that had a question submitted. Actually, there were more, but they took their comments back because they were redundant. So I am reading this comment from Stuart Rich. Stuart is the president of PLIC, which stands for Protect Lummi Island Community. PLIC was a 501c3 nonprofit formed in 2010 with the sole purpose of advocating for interests of Lummi Islanders. From 2010 onward, PLIC addressed the issue of high ferry rates, leading to the impact of reduced ridership and thus reduced revenues, this cycle. The conclusion back then in 2010 and in years after that is the same as now. Higher ferry fares will reduce revenues and will lead to reduced services for islanders and other people using the ferry. Stewart's request is that the county council postpone a fare decision until alternatives can be fully examined and considered. Please don't rush to judgment. There are other alternatives he's aware that have been put forward. They should be analyzed. A rush to judgment will harm our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. And Peter Earl, did you want to say?
Yes, I do. I think I have some people who are going to cede me some additional time if necessary. So I shouldn't need it, I'll say. We'll see if when we get there. All right. I want to say that yesterday I attended the Finance Committee meeting, Public Works Committee meeting at the council, and I sat there and listened to the urgency expressed by the Public Works people, Liz Posa and Randy Rydell, about the horrible scenario we have with the rising costs that are out of control and the shrinking revenue. And we have to do something. And Randy Rydell put up a big chart that showed this arching, this line going down like there it is, right there. See that green line? That's the green line. And we got to do something about it. This is not sustainable. That's what he said. And that's what Liz Cosa said. And the council members all wanted to tremble in their seats as they listened to this, and they raise the fares now, you know. And LIFAC representative got up and said, well, we support, but we haven't voted yet, but we support raising the fares because we believe all that crap, you know. And this is the situation though. We have operating costs. You are the stewards of what goes into the pot of operating costs, right? We know that it's an administrative cost. There's no controversy there. We know it's the daily running fees costs, you know, the salaries for the crew, the diesel, right? The diesel's gone up. That's a legitimate basis for increasing fares. Salaries have gone up. That's a legitimate reason for increasing fares. You need to calculate that stuff, right? But you've got this guy, an accountant in the back room of Public Works, throwing all of the stuff into the pot, into the operating costs. You've got him saying, oh my God, we got $800,000 in new dolphin rebuilding costs. Okay? That you have the discretion, you are the gatekeepers, you have discretion to say, that's a capital cost, or we'll capitalize it, because we can adhere to the plain language of the ordinance. And I gotta say, Mr. Councilmember Alan Boss, I really appreciated your language at the beginning of this meeting here tonight. I like plain talk. And I like talk where people use plain language, and plain meaning is derived from that plain language. And we have an ordinance 1034 that says operating costs are limited by regular and routine expenses, right? Operational, this is plain language. You go to the Supreme Court of the United States, you go to the federal courts of appeal, you go to the US district courts, you go to the Washington County courts, and you ask them, how do you interpret language in ordinances, in laws, in statutes, in constitutions? They say, we read the plain language of the ordinance, plain language, regular and routine. That means non-regular, non-routine is not.
Thanks for your comments, Mr.
No, I have one more minute to go. All right. Here you go. Right. Okay, I got 3 minutes. Good. And I won't use all 3. I don't think I need to. All right. But this is the crux of the problem. So if you as gatekeepers say to Public Works, without any scrutiny, we're going to let you sweep in to that pot all those things to inflate our operating costs, then you're going to have to wrestle with the question of what do you do with 55% of that? How far do you have to raise? Because you're allowing them to raise the bar way up high and drown us in the process. And that is wrong. You have a responsibility as elected officials. And you spoke very plainly, sir, and I congratulate you for that. You're well received here on the island. We have not heard that kind of emphasis from the other council members, and it's a shame. I expect to hear it in the coming days as you study this. I sent all of you an email saying, ask some questions. What is the book value of those dolphins? When were they put in? You haven't even asked for that. You don't know. I asked for that through a public records request, and they won't give me that information until after April 25th, after you meet next time, supposedly to vote on this. You know, so what was the cost of those dolphins when they were installed? What was the service life that was allocated to those dolphins, over which time the depreciation was calculated on those dolphins during that period of time? And I'll bet you a lot. I'll bet you a beer. Right? that
we like beer.
You like beer. Right. I'll bet you a beer that those dolphins cost less, significantly less than $100,000. So how can you look at me, us, this island? Look at these folks. Look at them in the eyes. I mean, you said you wanted to come here and look us in the eye, and you did. That's good. These other folks need to do that. You need to look at these folks here in the eye and understand that approximately half of the folks in this room are financially vulnerable, and a significant percentage of them would have to move off of this island if by 3 minutes are not up yet. Sorry, it would have to move off this island if you raise the rates 25%. We've already had one person indicate one of their neighbors had to move. There's going to be more, and you're going to change the character of this island. So I ask you, you look at them in the eye and you ask yourself, is this distinction where you have discretion? You have you write the ordinances, you interpret the ordinances, you're the bottom line. You ask yourself, is it so important to say that those dolphins, $800,000, ought to be in that pot of operating costs so you can raise the rates 25%? If you take that out, you don't have to do it. If you take it out, you can, and that's what we're asking you to do.
Okay, so Peter,
yeah,
since we're not playing by council rules here.
Yeah, oh yeah, let's talk. Yeah.
You said you were at that meeting. You remember the question?
You did. You asked that question, and
so
Kaylee,
you're making it sound like you're ignoring your point about.
No, okay. So you.
Public Works. How do we define capital? We don't have a clear definition of capital. I asked that. You're kind of glossing past.
Okay. Council member, Todd, that's a very good point. Okay, but I would, you did say that. You asked those questions, and so did Kaylee Galloway. To her credit, and that's good. But I would go further than that. I would get the documentation of when those assets were put in the ground, what the depreciated service life of those was, and has that time expired? You know, if you get you look at that ferry, you'll see that they're completely wrapped in new steel posts. That's a rebuild. It is not a repair. Right? Okay, it's so anyways, and so I do want to recognize, I don't want to be completely negative about LIFAC here. I mean, it's and I recognize you guys work hard and you do a lot of stuff, and the LIFAC generations of the past have gotten us a new ferry, and you stood up for the needs-based folks on the island, and that's good. Okay, but you also need to be asking these questions, and when you vote tonight, you should vote no, because if you vote yes on approving and supporting these things and not waiting until we get to the bottom of these things, then what you're saying, a very significant percentage of your neighbors, of your community.
All right.
Let it roll. Go, Peter. What you're saying to your neighbors, your community, you look at them in the eyes. You're saying to them, you're expendable. You are expendable. So I can stand on a principle that says we should add $800,000 to the operating cost pot and then raise the fares 25% without getting to the bottom of the question. That's what you're saying. At least almost half of the people in this room, to the extent that this room is representative of the island as a whole, based on US Census data, right? And I asked the council to please work with Sat Paul, adhere to his, he promised us, he did, that you guys. I'm gonna say it in plain. Yeah.
And if Sat Paul was sitting here, I'd say it to him.
Yeah, well.
I love the man, he's a wonderful, kind, friendly guy, but Sat Paul likes to tell you whatever you want to hear. And if he was sitting right here, I'll tell you that too.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I want to hear.
Peter, can I just remind you that Sat Paul was there yesterday?
Yes, yeah, he didn't speak.
He didn't speak.
Okay, but he did speak to the island, and there were over 34 families.
And that had nothing to do.
No, but it had to do with these issues. And LIFAC, you're not just supposed to work with them and public works about this stuff. You're supposed to represent us. It says it in the charter. And these are the people you're supposed to be representing. You should really look at them in the eye and understand that they have needs. They want to stay on this island that they love. They love it as much as you do. You know, and so I say vote no and vote yes on Rich's proposed resolutions.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Okay.
We have another council.
Okay, Leslie, go right ahead. And then this will be our last one.
Okay. This question is from Marissa Orada and her husband, Chris. They are relatively new to the island, young family, and Marissa is pregnant. And she is experiencing lots of doctor's visits, frequent travel to the mainland for doctors. They request that islanders get reimbursed for medical travel. Please understand that this is difficult for people who need frequent medical treatment, not just pregnant people, but people with cancer, people who have other medical issues. There are a lot of us. Since there are no doctors on the island, we have no medical infrastructure on the island. Marissa and her husband think that we should get free travel to doctor's appointments, and because this is a huge burden to young families and many people.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we have some business to conduct, and actually before we get to that, Mike, can you address yours in 5 minutes? Can you agree?
Or less.
Okay.
Yeah. Do I need to stand over there for
Yes. Yeah. Well, actually, that number will hit you. Yeah, there's one right there. You should be okay. Just move it along. Whatever you're doing, do it.
Hey, this is awesome having you all here. This is more people than our normal council meetings. We've been doing this LIFAC for 11 years. Before that, we started 2 years sooner, and Jimmy was on a ferry task force committee in 2011. And a lot of work has gone into getting you in this room tonight, so it's much appreciated. Yeah, I just want to share a few thoughts, and I want to make the 3 things clear. This doesn't have any of my opinion in it, and I've been thinking about this over the last 2 meetings. Now I wanted to share some thoughts with you tonight that I think are all fact-based, and I had them all fact-checked, but I'm not about, there may be something erroneous in it, but I just want you to know, listening mode. Then I have copies of it if you want to take some home. Oh, sorry. Thank you. The purpose of what I'm about to share with you is to A, clarify some points. 2, it's to present some context for all that's been going on through a brief history of highlights of the ferry issues within the county dating back to 2008. And then 3rd is to just express gratitude for what we do have and a plea to move forward on positive solutions to what lies ahead. Fare increases, new ferry, and all that.
So that's the reason I put this together. And I want to start with this. Public Works has no legal obligation to interact with LIFAC, none. LIFAC has no obligation to interact with Public Works, none. It's a fact. And LIFAC is appointed by and accountable solely to the county council. Now, having said that, we've been working in concert with Public Works the last several years, and it wouldn't have happened 10 years ago when LIFAC formed, 11 years ago. Okay, so that's the context I'm talking about. We've come a long way in terms of the relationships. Same thing with the council too, by the way. So Rich Hudson, Liz Cosa, who's been out here, Roland Middleton, who's been out here, Randy Rydell, who's come out, and Councilman Donovan, amazing how much you come out here with us. Kathy came last month, and I'm loving seeing Ben here. I haven't seen him in a long time. They have no obligation to be here ever, none, and they're here, and I'm so grateful. So I just want to start with the gratitude. I wrote, thank you for being here. Some historical things to remember as we move ahead. We lost funding for a new ferry in 2008 per council action. We almost lost ferry service as it exists when the contract expired, and sometimes hostile negotiations were taking place in that. We almost lost vehicle ferry service at a time around 2010, and that is a whole discussion of another time, but it's a fact-based thing that at one point there was a proposal put out. It was led by a council member, and then internally I've had this confirmed by more than one person. The instruction was to reduce us to a passenger-only ferry, and that's all that's required by law. So then we almost lost, yeah, and that centers on some important facts. County is not bound by ordinance to provide a vehicle ferry. By ordinance, there's no requirement to operate the ferry any specific number of times a day. Okay, and any change in that, depending on what the change is, would involve negotiations with two unions. So we can't just arbitrarily say cut them in half, but we could get them cut in half, right? That centers on these facts. The crew has no requirement by ordinance or union to make extra runs during a schedule. It's entirely at the discretion of the captains. And again, something to be grateful for, in my opinion. The county is not obligated to provide any specifically designated amount of parking at Gooseberry Point, at or near. Disabled spots are designated as required by ordinance. We have to be grateful for, in addition to unrequired extra runs, upward to 200 runs a week, 36 a day in the work week, 18 a day on the weekends and holidays, and a crew that lives by ordinance on the island and is substantial to fill in during emergencies and vacations. A crew that by anybody's reckoning, I believe, cares. They care about you, and they care about us, everyone who isn't here as well. In 2010, when the nonprofit that was mentioned before, PLIC, formed, Stuart Rich and several other islanders were involved, and I actually chaired that for a year before we formed LIFAC. There was a lot going on, and she said I have 5 minutes, but I gotta take. I'm almost finished. Okay. All right, I'll even skip this part. The next part was about some relationships. I'll just skip that. I want to stay on the positive stuff. After LIFAC formed, Public Works infrastructure changed dramatically. And there's a history behind that I have here, but I'm going to give you a copy of it and you can read it. But we didn't have an assistant director, and we didn't, and Richie's title was in place, but his role was expanded, and it's been amazing that change in the infrastructure on getting things done for us through the group across the board. And John Hutchins, by the way, who's no longer the director, made that happen. One quick thought about the comparisons to Guaymas Island that I've heard. and I'll defer to Richie to go further with this. They make about half as many runs as we do. They're about to incur a 75% ferry rate increase. Their ferry operators are not required to live on their island, and their demographic and island makeup is nothing like ours. They ferry directly to a port city. They have a town and a lot of infrastructure. Addressing this, yeah.
That they at this point, I've seen some misinformation about this, but I checked it this morning, and Guimas Ferry has a 65%, 35% fare box recovery goal. So keep that in mind. Nobody likes to pay more, but they're already paying more, and it's certain to increase.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. Peter, I love you, and I think you make great points. I don't like it when you said we just sat there and believe that crap. You don't know what I was thinking. I was there, but our fare box went down 2% yesterday. If the code is changed, it went from 55 to 53 based on the positives that were added into that could be added into the code. Okay. Pardon me? Yeah, this is the last point. I want to make this point clear. Randy Rydell has been in charge of financials for the county for the last since 2015. The error that he uncovered went back 9 years before he was on the staff. He had zero obligation to go back in and look at that. None. Because of Islanders and and LIFAC and county council action, he did. And he spent literally weeks on it to find this so that we could get things correctly. Pardon me? Well, I don't have any opinion. I'm not expressing my opinion about anything. I'm trying to lay out facts that we need context to know that we are doing everything possible to move forward. And that's a critical fact. We could still be dealing with that huge deficit, and it wouldn't have been anybody's fault because it wouldn't have been uncovered. It's just a fact, okay? I'm not giving you an opinion. I understand that. I understand that. And then my last point is the county was not or is not obligated to consider giving us the $1 million or $1.3 million. It's not been decided yet. It's still up in the air, but that's a fact. Okay, we're not obligated.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Now we're going to take care of a little business here. One of the challenges that we have as a committee is that the timing of our meeting on the second Wednesday is always the day after the council meeting. I'd like to propose that our meetings move to the first Tuesday of the month because the first Wednesday of the month is already taken at the Grange. Would people be in favor of this? Or bring up the Wednesday or just bring up? Well, the Wednesday would be the third Wednesday and that'll be after. Right, but it's in front of the Wednesday. Yeah, that is another possibility. I'm sorry. The third Wednesday is also a possibility. So always. They're not always. Oh, they're not? Oh,
you see it the week because of spring break. So
so is the first Tuesday ever used?
Yeah,
it is used. So we have brought two possible scenarios forward, but we do think that it should change because mostly the meetings are council meetings happen right before this monthly cadence. So one way or the other, the two ideas that we had were first Tuesday of every month or third Wednesday. And considering that, maybe we should go for the third Wednesday.
Does anybody have an objection to that?
Unfortunately. Personal ones that I did, yeah.
You do, okay.
The alternative, why don't we just set them when they set? If it's the first Tuesday and we can get it, take it.
Well, it's hard to keep the public involved in a changing schedule, Jim. It would be better if it was a regularly scheduled meeting.
And getting them scheduled with the Grange is sometimes they have other meetings too.
what if it's scheduled for whichever first Tuesday or third Wednesday, and whenever there's a conflict, which is not, you know, I don't know how frequent that is, but maybe it gets changed once a year. Or
do your meetings change frequently?
We get the calendar at the beginning of the year. So like right now, June 6th would be a first Tuesday, but probably around June 6th.
Yeah.
Is the third Wednesday better that?
Fourth Wednesday, Jim, is that a possibility for you?
And December 5th. Well, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Whatever. Yeah, I can handle.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to explore the other days then, because I can't commit to the days other than.
But if you did the first Tuesday, which would be 2 council meetings, it'd be now in December or the end of December.
Okay, so we could switch those two.
So it could be the
First Tuesday.
Tuesday, and we can announce in advance for the weeks that match up.
Is the fire hall no longer?
No, it isn't.
So first Tuesday, does that work for you, Jim? Yeah. Okay. Rich? Is that a yes or a no?
It's either way.
Okay. So first Tuesday, Mike? Good. Okay.
I want to interject a quick thought. That was on my sheet. I didn't get to it. Another thing I appreciate is LIFAC is required to meet 4 times a year, and for 11 years we've met monthly. I love that.
One question. So when would that start?
That's a good question. Next.
Presumably May. We could do it starting May.
Okay, so I have another meeting on Tuesdays from 5:30 to as long as it goes.
On the first Tuesday?
Or not the first Tuesday.
Right, okay, it's the first.
Okay, I thought you were talking about the third Tuesday. Okay, first
no,
Tuesday.
first. Okay.
So we need to change it again.
Okay, yeah, and anybody just let me know if that doesn't work, but from now, we're gonna change the meeting to the first Tuesday. We'll start in May. I'll get the new schedule up. Leslie said the Grange is open, so we'll switch our dates. I don't think so. Okay, I think we're good. All right. Let's do your report. Go for it, Rich.
Okay, thanks, Mary. I'm going to make it pretty brief. The only thing I really came to discuss tonight was is this year's upcoming dry dock. Is everybody aware where to find all that information online? If you haven't already, we've also got these packets that we put out at the Islander, the post office, and then I think the library. I'll have to double check on that, but so if you can't find it online, that's where it is. We're going to be leaving first thing in the morning. The walking chief is going to leave first thing in the morning on April 29th. There will be no ferry service at all, not vehicle nor passenger ferry until, let's see, when is that? Until a little later in the afternoon after we do the switch over the floats and all that business go in. And then we'll resume service with the passenger only ferry. Likewise, coming back on May 20th, there will be passenger vessel service for about half the day from the morning until about 3 p.m. And then this is all due to tides and whatnot, tide heights. Then we will take the floats out and the walking chief will go back into service evening of the 20th after that changeover again has occurred. That's probably the biggest highlights I wanted to discuss with you. There's not going to be any extra work going on during dry dock this year, so we won't have those big long gangways that we usually put in. We posted online some of the low tide heights. So because when the low tide heights happen, those ramps get pretty steep. So if you're caring for somebody in a wheelchair or you're on crutches or you're a little unstable, please be aware of all that before you go down the ferry and catch a boat. And again, you can find all that online. Last thing about dry dock is this year we're going to Lake Union Dry Dock. The only major work we're really doing is overhauls on the main engines, but the total cost of dry dock this year, the bid ended up at $888,000, $888,381. We had one bid this year for one dry dock. So anyway, just wanted to say that out loud.
So what day and what time was the last boat?
Good questions.
And back.
So that's the last boat to the mainland and back for a vehicle ferry. We're going to be using, we're going to have the normal vehicle ferry schedule all day on the 28th, Friday, April 28th, all the way up through the last runs. Yeah.
Hey, Rich, I was gonna ask, is there any way to get rid of the old years? Because I looked like 2 weeks ago, and you got to really pay attention when you're searching the
on the
county
website
about like 2021, 2022.
It should be, if you go to the, if you type in, Whatcom County Public Works Ferry, it should take you to the ferry site, and then at the top there's that little icon that says dry dock.
It's just a little different. I mean, yeah, I saw it on next door too. I thought I was the only one.
Oh, okay.
So just heads up, I don't know if the county can kind of tweak, like trying to get rid of the old stuff because you're not paying attention.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that. Sure. Thanks.
I did ask about that, by the way, and the explanation that I got from it was that all records have to be kept up there, which is why they keep all the old ones. It's just that it's somewhat difficult to navigate through them, so that they technically can't get rid of any information as part of Public Records Act. And so that's why all that information is still there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. When I use my iPhone and I go to the ferry website and I click dry dock, all the current information comes up. So I'll have to look into that further. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna postpone the naming of the new ferry again. We're going to postpone the new discussions on the new terminal construction. That's going to go till June. Let's see, Rich did his report, and Mike will talk about the naming later, but we do want to propose that LIFAC recommend moving forward with the current 2 proposals that are up before council. One is the ordinance and one is the fare increase. So
okay,
postpone that.
Oh, can I make a statement about that? Which is that if this committee tonight votes in favor of moving that proposal forward, it does not mean that it's an approval of the 2 proposals. It means that it moves forward to council. That's all it means.
One reason.
Ben, please. Okay, well, wait. Before we start doing this, I believe that we're finished with our regular.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I have several resolutions.
That's why I'm bringing this up. Kind of checking in on where we're at in the meeting here. Okay. So I believe that you guys want to catch the 8 o'clock ferry, and if you're willing to stay around till, and you too, till 10 minutes before or whatever time, I'm hoping that we can address that, and then maybe we can have some open time for questions. Since you're here.
I was just gonna say that a reason to make a recommendation tonight would be that it comes to council on the 25th.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you won't have another meeting before we have to.
Yeah, and that's always part of this problem with our timing. Yeah.
Well, it's always a problem with every advisory committee that no man, but
yeah.
Again, we'll try and decipher what's LIFAC opinion and what's the residents' opinion.
So, one of the reasons I'm going to recommend, and I know this is very unpopular that we move forward with this now, is that I do have talked to lots of Islanders, most of whom that are not in this room. And there is more support for this than one would imagine.
Okay, you know what? Nobody can answer that.
Yeah.
Nobody can answer that. And I've also
there's-
noticed that on Nextdoor, the term is used frequently that the vast majority of Islanders are in favor of yada, yada, yada. And you know what? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know one way or the other.
So,
What, Karen? Well, I'm countering that. I'm countering that.
We're done with the public comment session. Okay. No, we're not.
I think we have a pretty clear picture, actually.
I think a show of hands for all that say no.
Okay, we are.
An important point was made earlier is that we aren't policy making body. The process is we make recommendations with them. Public Works answers to the executive, and if you have issues with Public Works, you've done your job by going to the executive.
You can decline to make a recommendation tonight until these issues have been resolved.
Thank you.
50% of the people in this room who are on the right side financially about this issue would greatly appreciate, as your neighbors, if you did so, because you'd be standing up for them if you did so.
Peter, as your neighbor, we would also greatly appreciate not being yelled at.
Oh, come on.
That's enough. We're not going to have any more public comment on this. We have been working on this for 6 months now. We've had all kinds of input. I've talked to accountants. I've talked to everyone at Public Works. I have explanations for all of this, none of which I'm going to put out here today because none of you are going to actually believe when I tell you that. Because that's what I think. So it is, Rich, no, not right now. Okay, what is your question?
It's a good question. My question is, why are we passing this forward when we have not discussed any of the specific items in this proposed code change? And
we've been discussing it since February.
We didn't even see it. And this is the first meeting we've had since we've seen the writing in this thing.
I gave it to you at the February meeting.
No, you did not. I checked the minutes of the meeting and I checked and that did not. It was not in the minutes. The proposal from the county, the actual wording of the changed rules.
I had it.
Did not
copy.
The metadata on the document showed that it was first printed on March 13th.
And the one that came out last week is different than the one that came out on the 13th. It's not the same.
Okay, we're going to get to our business here, and I am going to propose that we move forward with both of these proposals.
May I add one point? That there is another reason for us to move this to the public hearing on the 25th, which is that allows council to look at the ordinance in closer connection to ARPA funds. And there's not time to lose.
It's been 17 years. I mean, I'm just lost.
These details in the proposal have not been discussed word by word, section by section by this committee.
Yeah.
In the code,
shouldn't we discuss each of these changes, which are dramatic? They're dramatic, important changes that completely change the meaning of this ordinance. It has enormous impact, and we, as a body, have not discussed this. Maybe some of you discussed it online or on the phone. I have not been party to those conversations. So my belief is these conversations have not been had in this committee.
And we can bring them to the public hearing on the 25th.
So you don't think we should have an opinion as a group?
I doubt if we're going to settle on a single thing.
When a motion is made, the motion on the table, and then the committee can discuss it. So Rich, this would be the time for you to discuss any concerns with the motion on the table.
Move for approval, get a second, then discuss.
Yeah, right. So this would be when you do discuss it.
Okay, well, in that case, I do have at least 3 changes, but only one of them is an actual change to two others are things that I handed you on that piece of paper. And so we can pretend that I have to run it through LIFAC to give it to you to the council. Or you can just say, okay, I see it, I get it, we'll look at it.
So you would discuss those issues with the chair and the committee, and then if you have a motion to amend something, you'd make it, and then you'd all vote on it. That's what you do.
That's what I would think too.
So is that what you're doing?
Well, we haven't made a motion.
Mary made a motion.
I made a motion.
Oh, you did?
And he seconded.
I have another motion regarding certain proposals, some of which I think will be very popular with the Lummi Islanders. And I don't think anyone would have any particular concern about it. We want to admit it. But the general question of the enormous changes in the ordinance to the definition of to removing the language about what constitutes operating costs, calling it everything that isn't capital. That's like, anyway, completely unacceptable.
Okay.
To any thinking person.
Okay, is there any other comments?
So let me just read these things.
Am I allowed to reach your question in the discussion?
He's making an amendment, a motion to amend the.
Peter, you're out of order.
I'll start with the last one. My conversation. And this is regarding the $1,063,207 counting error. And this resolution would read, in accordance with the clear wishes of the vast majority of the Lummi Island community, LIFAC recommends to the county council that it instruct public works to remove from the fare box burden the $1,061,207 resulting from what has been previously characterized by Randy Rydell as a data entry error, which allegedly occurred and accumulated over the course of the last 17 years, and that said money retroactive amount be excluded from the calculation of adjusted total operating costs for the past year, contained in Exhibit B, and currently filed as AB 2023-259. Why? This error was discovered and included in the 2011 report to the County Council from its Citizens Task Force for Long Island Ferry. County Council at that time deliberately chose to let it stand. End of story.
So then you guess.
Okay, do we have a second for that? Okay, so let's vote. Any discussion on that, or is there a vote on that?
I want to be clear what the motion is, please.
I'm not clear if this is secondary. Amendment. Right.
There is a statute of limitations in the state of Washington for this kind of thing. If you don't attempt to collect it within that time, which has not been done, you don't get it.
Oh, okay. So we're voting, your motion is to amend
the motion
to the ordinance.
Okay, the motion is remove from the fare box burden that amount which has been assigned to the fare box by public orders, and which is 17 years old, and by the way, which the council had a chance to vote on in 2011 and chose not to act, basically ratifying the decision that had been made over many years before.
Question: if we vote yes, does that wipe out the ARCA?
This is just a resolution that goes to these guys so they can talk about it.
The recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
And it also does not have anything to do with the code as amended.
Correct.
And or the ferry rate table as proposed. Correct. It's something separate.
It's something separate. It has to do with this particular.
So that particular motion would probably be called out of order because of your motion, and then you'd bring it up after you voted on the motion that you made.
Kathy used to chair the council.
Yeah.
Amongst other things.
Okay.
So it's not that you aren't what you're saying is not something to be discussed. I'm just saying this is not the right spot for it, according to Mary's motion.
Yeah.
Okay. So we deal with the motion on the floor.
Correct. Do we have discussion on that? The motion is to make a recommendation for both the ordinance change and the to bring forward the ferry fee schedule
to council.
To council. Correct. Conversation.
You brought it along.
Okay.
And also, we need to get to the bottom of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, another month is not gonna kill us. We need to get to the bottom of this stuff. We look at the state of Washington allocations for ferry versus repair. I mean, capital versus repair. And also with the amount of money that they spend on those, they had to be replaced anyway. Why weren't they replaced once under the capital fund? They brought the bloody pile driver in twice. And both of those spool up times, that cost a horrendous amount of money. Okay. You know, this is the kind of stuff that a lot of us are worried about here. That we need to have a little tighter control on this thing and a little better direction. Because it's like, what?
Where does that come from? What you're suggesting?
It comes from about 10 people that talked to them.
So no.
Yes.
What you want to have happen is responsible.
I want to
right.
I wanted to get all these questions answered by the proper authorities. And also, this is a questioning of the increased cost incurred.
Okay.
By
what's the hurry?
Yeah.
If you listen to Liz Cosa yesterday and Tuesday in her presentation, part of the hurry is that every day that we go forward, they're losing money. So as she put it, not paying our bills.
Let me just mention that Skagit County, for example, in their accounting, computes the fare box.
Hey, Patrick,
computes the fare box burden as the average of the last 5 years.
Right, I saw that.
Of the revenue, of the costs, minus both of the reimbursements from state, Washington State DOT. So it's a good idea to have it based on the 5-year average because you iron out the variation from year to year. Especially if those years include the COVID years, which are not typical, not predicted, and unreliable. We don't know what the future is going to be, but chances are, the way the economy is improving, that there isn't going to be a problem. Not to mention the things that various people have mentioned here, that the story we keep getting from Public Works for the last 4 months keeps changing. And every time it changes, that there's another charge they're making, we look closely at it and it's crap. There's no data behind it to support it.
I would disagree with you on that one. And I started the meeting by saying assuming positive intent. And I don't think there's anybody at Public Works or in the county that's deliberately trying to mislead us.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm gonna address that a little bit. All right, okay. You want to know who's written that ferry more than anybody else in this room? Me. I'm 72 years here on Lummi Island. I've watched it.
Richie. It's me actually. I'm sorry. Start over, Jim.
I mean, as right.
He looks so young.
I'm just going to say.
Now, the thing is that what we've had is it looks to me like we've had a nullification, or what do you want to call it? This is the way we always do things. You can't do that. Times change. We need to have a different approach on some of these things. Last one I brought up.
Jim, that's okay. We're going to move on. Chris, you have something.
May I ask a question? Would you please,
Stop it.
So the question is, if the committee postpones a vote on this recommendation or on this, these two recommendations, are people gonna be ready to live with the consequences, which likely will mean a greater increase to fares when it comes? And, we don't know that, but
I do. Just so you guys all know, I do know that. I absolutely know that. And I hope everybody here listens to me, even if just a second, may I? I just would like to just make one thing really clear. Even if this fare proposal goes, if it goes through and we start collecting this as soon as we can, we're still going to be way out of line at the 55.45 at the end of the year. Way out. The further we push this out, and the more we wait for all this clarification that I've gotten, these folks have gotten, say it takes a year, we're going to be in the same place. We're going to be worse. We're going to be like 85% in a year or two from now if we keep this up. Right now, you forget about dolphins. You forget about COVID. You forget about ridership. Right now, if we pass this fare increase, we're still not even come close to making the 55%. And we didn't buy any dolphins this year. We didn't experience COVID this year. That's a fact.
That's wrong. It's not a fact, but you know.
We had COVID this year. Did we replace some dolphins?
Please, Mr. Earl.
Stop.
Please, Mr. Earl.
We just request permission to speak. Raise your hand.
No, I was cut off. I want to finish my.
Okay, I've just got one question. One question for the council people.
Okay,
please.
we gotta go to like.
Yeah, you do. So if we do not vote on this tonight, what happens with you?
There is a public hearing. There's a public hearing on the 25th, and it is up for council consideration. So what would happen is the council will consider what's in front of us with or without the LIFAC's recommendation.
Okay.
I'm kind of getting a sense of what's happening here, so I'm taking that with me. Okay. I got a sense of what you guys said. I'm taking that with me.
Okay, then I am going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. We're done.
Second.
Done. Meeting adjourned. No, we're done. We're done.
You could vote to not support the proposal as presented until everything is suspicious. You can take an action to the process.